Hey, 8th graders, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating topic, God's design and ecological energy flow, specifically focusing on food webs and energy. Get ready, because we're about to look at the world right outside your window in a completely new way.
So where did the energy for your last meal actually come from? No, really, think about it for a second. Whether you had a hamburger, a salad, or even just a quick piece of fruit, where did the sheer power inside that food originate? Well, if you trace the energy powering your body right this very second, it goes all the way back to a blazing star sitting 93 million miles away. That's right, the sun. Every single movement you make is quite literally star-powered.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with number 1, energy, the engine of life. Then 2, producers, capturing the light. 3, consumers, passing the energy. 4, decomposers, nature's perfect recyclers. 5, God's intelligent ecosystem balance. And we'll wrap up with 6, education, morality, and peace.
Let's jump right into Section 1, energy, the engine of life, powering the natural world. Absolutely all life on Earth depends on a continuous, unbroken flow of energy. Like we just talked about, every single bite you take started with energy captured from the sun. The sun is the grand starting point for this entire incredible journey. You see, this energy doesn't just disappear, it gets passed along. It flows through plants, then to animals, and eventually right to you. Understanding this energy flow is really the very first step in grasping how our whole world operates.
Moving on to Section 2, producers, capturing the light, the foundation of the food chain. Now we meet the incredible organisms doing the heavy lifting to actually catch that sunlight. Producers are plants that use sunlight to make their own food and energy through a process you're probably familiar with called photosynthesis. This is absolutely crucial because without this foundational step of photosynthesis, energy could never enter our ecosystem at all. They are the gateway. Producers take raw sunlight and magically turn it into the sugar and energy that the rest of the world relies on to survive. Next up, Section 3, consumers, passing the energy, animals acquiring their fuel. Since we can't all just bask in the sun and make our own food, we have the next vital link in the chain, consumers. These are animals that cannot make their own food. Because they don't do photosynthesis, they have to eat other organisms to acquire their energy. They are entirely dependent on either those producers we just talked about or upon other consumers to get the fuel they need to live, breathe, and grow.
We can actually break consumers down into 3 distinct types based on their diet. First, you've got herbivores. These are your plant eaters, like a rabbit just happily munching on a sunflower. Second, we have carnivores. These are the meat eaters, like a lion hunting down a zebra on the savannah. And finally, omnivores. These guys eat both plants and meat. Think of us humans sitting down to a dinner of chicken and a side salad. Every single consumer out there fits perfectly into one of these specific roles.
On to Section 4, decomposers, nature's perfect recyclers, resetting the system. You know, these guys are truly the unsung heroes of our ecosystems. Without them, the world would basically turn into a giant, unlivable garbage dump. Decomposers are fungi and bacteria that break down dead plants and animals, returning vital nutrients back to the soil. God designed these decomposers to be nature's ultimate recycling plant. Without them, waste would just pile up endlessly. But more importantly, the soil wouldn't get its nutrients replenished. And if the soil has no nutrients, well, those producers we talked about earlier, they wouldn't be able to grow again. The whole cycle would just grind to a halt. So let's look at how all this builds into a flawless, continuous loop. It's a real step-by-step journey. Step 1, the sun provides that initial burst of light. Step 2, a sunflower, acting as a producer, captures that light and makes sugar and energy. Step 3, a rabbit, our consumer, comes hopping along and eats the sunflower, taking that energy right into its own body. And finally, Step 4, after the rabbit eventually dies, a mushroom, our decomposer, breaks down the rabbit's remains, putting those nutrients right back into the dirt for the very next sunflower to use.
Which brings us to Section 5, God's intelligent ecosystem balance. Purpose in creation.
So we've looked closely at the scientific how of the food web, but now let's talk about the why. Psalm 145 verse 15 says, "The eyes of all look to you, and you give them their food at the proper time."
This beautifully illustrates how perfectly the biological food web aligns with the biblical view of God providing for absolutely all of creation. It's not a series of random lucky accidents. It's a carefully orchestrated system where the needs of every organism are met at exactly the proper time through this incredible energy chain. Just as we see that nothing in nature is wasted and every single organism has a highly specific purpose, we can apply that exact same logic directly to ourselves. This ecological concept, that every species has a distinct role, directly mirrors the spiritual concept that everyone has a purpose in the body of Christ. We are all part of a much larger, beautifully balanced system. Finally, Section 6, Education, Morality, and Peace, the HeroesmartAcademy philosophy. You might be asking yourself, why does learning this science deeply matter for your spiritual and moral life? Well, consider a pretty powerful comparison here. On one hand, we have education without morality. Think about it. What is the point of being supposedly smart and highly educated if you just continue to make bad choices that end up hurting yourself and others? It just leads to pain. But on the other hand, education with biblical morality intertwines the science you just learned with true, deep wisdom. It gives you the solid moral foundation to make good choices, protect our fragile ecosystems, value the intricate balance God created, and ultimately protect life itself. Getting an education is great, but alone it isn't enough. It absolutely must be guided by morality. And the result of choosing that path is incredibly clear. Romans 8:6-7 promises actual peace of mind to everyone who keeps his or her mind spiritual. When you engage with your education through a spiritually grounded lens, when you can literally look outside and see God's design in the food web and recognize your own vital purpose within creation, the promise is a profound peace of mind. It's something you experience directly as you engage with this kind of meaningful learning. So, 8th graders, I want to leave you with one final question to think about. Knowing how perfectly God designed nature's energy flow, from that blazing sun all the way to the producers, consumers, and decomposers, how will you use your education and your moral compass to make smart choices today? You now understand both the science of the ecosystem and the wisdom of a moral foundation. So take that knowledge, go find your purpose, and use it to make a real positive impact in the world. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.